The woman was stunned to see her late husband's dog still waiting at the station. Her husband had been gone for 10 years, yet the dog, Ba Tong, had never left. The old newspaper vendor told her Ba Tong had been waiting every single day, even though his master would never return. Years earlier, Professor Chen had found the little pup on a mountain path. Since his wife hated dogs and his colleagues didn't want it, he secretly kept the pup in the attic. Of course, his son eventually found out. When his wife demanded he give the dog away, Chen would always tell people the dog might bite, so no one ever took him. The dog loved the mahjong tile, ate bamboos, so Chen named him Ba Tong. One day, Ba Tong knocked over his wife's mahjong set, making her furious. She insisted the dog had to go. But for once, the timid professor stood his ground. He said, "You love mahjong without asking me. Our son loves video games without asking me. Shouldn't I be allowed to love something too? That's what it means to really live." From that moment, nobody stood in the way of him keeping Ba Tong. Every morning, Ba Tong followed Chen to the station, and every evening he waited there to walk him home. Once, when Chen was leaving on a long trip, he asked his wife to keep Ba Tong inside, but the dog still squeezed out through the gate and chased after him. Chen handed him a newspaper, hoping he'd carry it back home, but this time Ba Tong refused to leave. He just stood there, watching his master board the train, unaware it was their last goodbye. On the journey, Professor Chen suffered a fatal heart attack. That evening, Ba Tong still waited at the station, but his master never returned. Even when Chen's daughter took him home, he didn't understand why his mistress wept in secret. On the day of the funeral, Ba Tong didn't go to the cemetery. Instead, he kept his post by the station flower bed, waiting for the face he would never see again. Not long after, the village faced demolition. Chen's widow decided to move in with her son, leaving Ba Tong in her daughter's care. But the dog grew listless. One day he ran away, returning to the old house, only to find it in ruins. Chased off by workers, he followed his memory back to the station and resumed his lonely vigil. His master's daughter eventually found him and tried to bring him home. Later, they planned to send him to relatives in the countryside, but Ba Tong escaped from the moving car and became a stray. Even then, he kept coming back to the station. The old newspaper vendor, knowing his story, gave him a paper every day. Ba Tong would carry it back to the abandoned house, curl up among the rubble and sleep, only to return to the station the next morning. This went on for 10 long years. One day, when Chen's widow and son returned from visiting his grave, she froze at the sight of a familiar figure. The newspaper vendor handed Ba Tong a paper and told her to follow. Step by step, Ba Tong led her back to the crumbling old house, pausing often to make sure she was still behind him. The sight brought her to tears, piles of newspapers stacked high, 10 years of loyalty preserved in silence. Having fulfilled his last duty, Ba Tong lay down, closed his eyes, and slipped away. He never knew why his master had left without saying goodbye. But as he drifted into darkness, he seemed to hear that gentle voice again, his beloved master calling him home.
傻孩子，都没人了，你还在这儿傻等啊？让你等了这么久。